Hi everyone, so today we are going to be working on our colored pencil techniques. So we've got a range of them here. You need to make sure that in your project you're actually including these. So today we're going to spend some time practicing them. So as always, when you get your project and your plan sheet or anything like that, you need to write your name on it and your code. So your code is 6 and then the first letter of your teacher, your classroom teacher's last name. So we're going to start over here with a range of values. So a range of values is figuring out how light your colored pencil and how dark your colored pencil can go. So the easiest thing to do is kind of start on the side and barely touch the paper. Barely touch the paper, you're coming over. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to slowly go from dark, or from light to dark. So what I'm doing is I'm just slowly pressing a little bit harder as I go. And if you notice, I'm giving like a little section of the same color. So I'm really practicing a little bit harder. And then finally you get to the point where you're bearing down very hard on that colored pencil to be able to find that last true color. So a range of values. And so if I noticed that I look here, this wasn't a very smooth transition, so maybe there was another range, another set of colors in there. Okay, so that's a range of values. So you're finding the value of the colored pencil. So hatching. Hatching is a series of small lines that are unattached. Typically, you pull in a direction. You can also hatch along a curve. And this is to really start to show that shadow. Cross-hatching is when you make those same unattached lines and then you do the same thing on a 90-degree or 45-degree angle in order to get it even darker. And so it's another way of using a range of values. Again, you can do it on a curve as well to really show that dimension, just like that. Stippling, small controlled pokes. So a lot of times you'll get kids who are like, that's not what you're going for. When you're stippling, you're trying to show basically a range of values in the stipple. So by having them more densely populated or put more closely together, you're going to get a darker value than if you put them kind of farther away. So when we say controlled pokes, not only are you paying attention to where your pokes are going, but you're paying attention to how closely you're putting them together in order to really show that range of values. So I'm basically trying to do the same thing up here, but with my stipples. So I can come down here, I can add some more, and then as I get further away, I'm going to put them less close together in order to show that it's lighter over there. And I can always come back and add more pokes. So it's not just randomly poking, you're actually showing a range of values, you're showing that gradient, that ombre effect by how densely you're putting your pokes together. Alright, so that is stippling. Layered color mixing. So we're going to worry about both of these blocks for this one. So color mixing is basically like what we do when we do wet on wet for our painting techniques, where you take one color and then you take a second one and layer it on top, and it changes the overall color of the original colored pencil. It's a way of mixing your colors. Whereas when you add white to a color or you add black to a color, you're making it either lighter or darker. And so I'm going to do both. Here I'm just doing a standard back and forth coloring, and then I'm taking my white crayon or colored pencil and I'm adding it on top, and it kind of smooths out your color as well. It kind of helps get rid of some of those white areas, those blank areas. And then with black, you don't have to add black to everything, but you can add black to a certain spot in order to make that color darker. So it's a way of darkening a color if you don't have the color that you need. And then you can always come back with your original color and put it on top if you're unhappy with the result of that. So that is white and black on a color. Highlights and shadows. So this is basically where you take the range of values and you apply it to an object. So I'm going to start out with a circle. And this circle is going to become a sphere just by making highlights and shadows. So I'm doing short, sketchy lines. I'm going to have my light source coming from this direction. And then I'm going to create a cast shadow because the object is casting the shadow because light can't get over there. So I'm going to think about if the light is coming from here, I have to make this the lightest part of my object. And back here, the light can't get to it, so this will be the darkest part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by coloring. And notice as I'm coloring this, I'm curving my coloring. If you don't curve your coloring and you just go straight across, you're going to lose that effect of that rounded object. So by coloring it on a curve or half moon or a crescent shape here, you're allowing it to really become that three-dimensional object that you're hoping for. So this also works for things that are ellipses, so ovals. So any curved object should be colored in that curved sense. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on slowly getting my colored pencil to go lighter until I get to an absolute white part here where the highlight will be. I'm going to come back and I can turn my paper so it's easier for me to color. I always recommend that. I'd rather you turn your paper than have it than right side up, as long as it makes it easier for you to actually color. So I want to have a smooth transition, just like when we blend in painting. And a little bit more. I can come down here right at that very back and really press hard. I can even come in and do some of my hatching to make it even darker and to really show how curved that area is. And then if I want to make it even darker, if I come along and I cross hatch, it'll make that area even more dark. A lot of times we don't realize how to apply that hatching and cross hatching, and that's really a good way, is to show that curved object and how dark it can get. So kind of like that, where your cast shadow is the darkest that your colored pencil will go, and you're coloring where the sunlight or your light source can't reach. So just like that. So that is how you apply highlights and shadows, and how you use hatching and cross hatching on top of a range of values. So honestly, if you show a highlight and shadow and you do it like I just did, where I did hatching and cross hatching, you can utilize 3 techniques all in one. Okay, so scumbling. Scumbling is small overlapping circles, just like this. Typically, scumbling is done on top of another color, so sometimes you'll have something where you have a background as one color, and then you need to show texture or pattern, and so you use scumbling to color it in, like that. So that is scumbling. And then finally, blending. So blending is basically where you take that range of values, but you're mixing the 2 colors together in the middle. So I'm going as dark as my colored pencil will go. I'm slowly getting a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, until it's super, super, super light, almost nothing there. And then I take my second color, and notice how I just flipped my paper. It honestly makes life so much easier when you do that. I'm going to do a range of values from this direction, and it's going to slowly get lighter and lighter as it gets closer to that other color. And so what happens is, just like when we blend with painting, we've now mixed 2 colors together with a new color created in the middle where those colors have mixed. And you can always come back with your first color, just like we did with the layered colors, and add it back on top to make a smoother transition between those 2 colors. So at the end, we have a range of values showing light to dark or dark to light. Hatching, which is small unattached lines. You can also do it on a curve. Cross hatching, small unattached lines that you have another set of lines going at a 45 or 90 degree angle in order to show an object's curvedness or shadow. Stippling is small controlled pokes. The tighter you cluster them together, the darker they become. I also recommend doing this on top of another color. Layering colors, so 2 completely on top of each other, very similar to our wet on wet. Highlights and shadows, both using a range of values, hatching and cross hatching. Scumbling are small overlapping circles, white on top of a color, black on top of a color, and then blending using a range of values going in one direction and another color going in the other directions. If you have any questions, let us know.